Hello everyone, in this video we are going to solve NCERT problems based upon charges and electric fields. So let us start with the first one. For the first problem we have two small charge spheres. Charge 1 is 2 times 10 to the power minus 7 coulombs and charge 2 is 3 times 10 to the power minus 7 coulombs. They are separated by a distance of 30 centimeters in air. To find the force between them, we will use the Coulomb's law, which is F equals K times the product of magnitude of the charges divided by the distance squared. We note that K is Coulomb's constant, which is 9 into 10 to the power 9. Now pause for a second. This is the most common mistake. Our distance is in centimeters, but applying Coulomb's law requires standard SI units. We must therefore convert 30 centimeters into meters, therefore R becomes 0.3 meters. Now let's substitute the numbers. It looks messy, but we can simplify it without a calculator. We need to group the regular numbers. 9 times 2 times 3 will equals 54. And we also group the powers of 10. 10 to the power 9 times 10 to the power minus 7 times 10 to the power minus 7 all adds up to 10 to the power minus 5. So the top is 54 times 10 to the power minus 5. The bottom is 0.3 squared, which is 0.09, or we can say 9 into 10 to the power minus 2. Now divide 54 by 9 to get 6. For the powers of 10, subtract the bottom exponent from the top. That is minus 5 minus 2 is minus 3. So our final answer is 6 times 10 to the power minus 3 newtons. One last thing. Is it attraction or repulsion? Since both charges are positive, they'll repel each other. So the force is 6 millinewtons repulsive, which is the answer to the first problem. Our second problem is a little different. We have charges 0.4 microcoulombs and 0.8 microcoulombs. We know the electrostatic force between them is 0.2 newtons. Our job is to find the distance r between them. First step, always check your units. We have microcoulombs and we need coulombs. Remember, micro means 10 to the power minus 6. So Q1 is 0.4 times 10 to the power minus 6 and Q2 is 0.8 times 10 to the power minus 6. We start with Coulomb's law. Since we want the distance, let's rearrange the formula before plugging in the numbers. Swap F and R squared. Now we have R squared equals K times Q1 Q2 divided by the force. Now it's time to plug in the values. K is 9 times 10 to the power 9. Multiplying the charges 0.4 times 0.8 is 0.32. The powers 10 minus 6 and 10 to the power minus 6 gives 10 to the power minus 12. Combine everything and divide by the force, which is 0.2. We get R squared equals 144 times 10 to the power minus 4. To get R, take the square root. Square root of 144 is 12. Square root of 10 to the power minus 4 is 10 to the power minus 2. So R is 12 times 10 to the power minus 2, or we can simply say that it is 12 centimeters. Part B asks for what is the force on the second sphere due to the first. We don't need to calculate this again. This is Newton's third law. Action and reaction are equal and opposite. If sphere 1 pulls sphere 2 with 0.2 newtons, sphere 2 will also pull the sphere 1 with exactly the same force, that is 0.2 newtons. Since the signs are opposite, the force is going to be attractive. This is the complete solution for our problem number 2. Our third problem is a two-part conceptual question about the nature of electric charge. First, what do we mean when we say charge is quantized? And second, if it is quantized, why don't we notice it when dealing with large-scale electricity? We often think of electricity like a fluid, flowing continuously, but that's not quite right. Charge is discrete. It comes in tiny indivisible packet called electrons. You can have 1 electron, 2 electrons or 3, but you can never have 2.5 electrons. This grainy nature is called as quantization. The total charge Q is always an integer, n times the elementary charge, E. Now for part B, why does charge feel continuous to us? Let's run the numbers. Consider a very small charge found in a typical lab experiment, 1 microcoulomb. To find out how many packets of charge this is, we divide by the charge of a single electron. This result is staggering. It comes out as 6 times 10 to the power 12. That is 6 trillion electrons in just that tiny spark. Here is the best way to visualize it. If we zoom into the microscopic level, we see the steps. It's jagged. But because 6 trillion is such a massive number, these steps are incredibly tiny relative to the whole. When we zoom out to the macroscopic world, those steps blur together. The jagged staircase looks exactly like a smooth continuous line. This is why classical physics ignores quantization for large charges. Our fourth problem is a common phenomena we observe in daily life. When we rub a glass rod with a silk cloth, both objects suddenly become charged. The rod becomes positive and the silk becomes negative. The question is, does this violate law of conservation of charge? Are we creating charge from nothing? To answer this, we must look at the microscopic level. Initially, both the glass rod and the silk cloth are neutral. They contain vast number of protons and electrons, but they are balanced. Every plus has a minus. The net charge of the entire system is zero. Now we apply friction. We rub them together. Friction provides the energy to break the bonds of loosely held electrons. In this specific pairing, glass holds its electrons less tightly than the silk. So the electrons physically move from the glass rod onto the silk cloth. When we separate them, look at the result. The glass rod has lost electrons, so it is now net positive. The silk cloth has gained those exact same electrons, so it is net negative. Let's do the accounting. If the rod gained a charge of plus Q, the silk gained a charge of minus Q. If you add them up, positive Q plus negative Q equals 0. The total net charge of the system is exactly the same as when we started, 0. This confirms that the charge was not created or destroyed, it was simply transferred. This is the law of conservation of charge. For our next problem, we have a square of side 10 centimeters. At the four corners, we have 4 point charges. Top left A and bottom right C are positive 2 microcoulombs. Top right B and bottom left D are negative 5 microcoulombs. We place a 1 microcoulomb charge right in the center. What is the net force on it? You might be tempted to pull out your calculator and start crunching Coulomb's law numbers. But wait, look at the symmetry. Let's focus on charges A and C. They are opposite to each other. They both have the same charge of plus 2 microcoulombs. They are both the same distance from the center. Since the center charge is positive, A pushes it away, which is towards the down right. C also pushes it away, up left. These two forces are now equal in strength but exactly opposite in direction, so they cancel out. Now look at the other pair, B and D. Both are minus 5 microcoulombs. Since the center is positive, it gets attracted to them. B pulls it upright, D pulls it down left. Again the charges are identical and the distances are identical. So the pull from B exactly cancels the pull from D. If the forces from A and C cancel and the forces from B and D cancel, what is left? Nothing. The net force on the center charge is exactly therefore 0 newtons. This is the power of symmetry in physics. No calculator is required. The next problem asks us to explain two fundamental rules about electric field lines. Why can't a field lines have a sudden break? And why can't two field lines ever cross each other? For part A, let's imagine a field line represents the path a positive test charge would take. The line exists because the electric field exists. If the line had a sudden break, it would mean that electric field suddenly disappears at that point or becomes undefined. In charge-free space, the electric field is continuous. It does not just switch. Therefore, the field lines must be continuous curves extending from positive charges to infinity or negative charges. Now part B. Why can't they cross? Remember, the tangent to a field line gives the direction of electric field at that point. If two lines crossed, at a single point we have two tangents. That means we would have two different directions for the net electric field at the same exact spot. That's like a compass needle trying to point north and east simultaneously. It's physically impossible. Since the net field is a unique vector, field lines can never intersect. In the next problem, we have a two-charge setup. Charge A is positive 3 microcoulombs, charge B is negative 3 microcoulombs. They are separated by 20 centimeters in a vacuum. We are interested in the exact midpoint O, which is 10 centimeters or 0.1 meters from each charge. Part A asks for the electric field at O. First look at the direction. Charge A is positive, so it pushes a test charge away. Its field vector points to the right. Charge B is negative, so it pulls the test charge. Its field vector also points to the right. Since both vectors point in the same direction, we simply add their magnitudes. We don't subtract them. These magnitudes are identical because the charges and distances are the same. So the total field is just 2 times the field of one charge. Plugging in Coulomb's constant, the charge, and the distance 0.1 squared, we get a net electric field of 5.4 times 10 to the power 6 newtons per coulomb, directed towards the negative charge. Now for part B, we place a tiny negative test charge of 1.5 nanocoulombs at point O. What force does it feel? We use the formula F equals Q times E, but be careful with the direction. Since our test charge is now negative, it feels a force opposite to the electric field. The field points to the right, so the force points towards the left. Mathematically, we multiply the magnitude of test charge by our field from part A. The result is 8.1 times 10 to the power minus 3 newtons. For our next problem, we are dealing with an electric dipole system. We have two charges on the z-axis. Charge A is positive 2.5 times 10 to the power minus 7 coulombs, which is located at minus 15 centimeter. Charge B is negative 2.5 times 10 to the power minus 7 coulombs and located at positive 15 centimeter. Therefore, they are separated by a total distance of 30 centimeters. First question, what is the total charge of the system? This is simple addition. We have one positive charge and one negative charge of the exact same magnitude. When you add plus 2.5 and minus 2.5, they perfectly cancel out. The net charge of any electric dipole is always 0. Second question, what is the electric dipole moment? The symbol is P. The formula is charge Q times the separation distance of 2A. Our distance is 30 centimeters, but we must convert to meters, so 0.3 meters. Multiply the charge magnitude by 0.3, we get 7.5 times 10 to the power of minus 8 coulomb meters. Dipole moment is a vector, so we need a direction. By convention in physics, the dipole moment vector points from the negative charge to the positive charge. In our diagram, the negative charge is at the top and positive charge is at the bottom, so the vector points downwards, that is along the negative z-axis. For our next problem, we'll place an electric dipole in a uniform electric field. The field strength E is 5 times 10 to the power of 4 newtons per coulomb. The dipole moment P is 4 times 10 to the power minus 9 coulomb meters. The dipole is tilted at an angle of 30 degrees relative to the field lines. We need to find the magnitude of the torque acting on this dipole. Torque is the turning effect of force that tries to rotate the dipole. The formula for magnitude is torque equals P times E times the sine of the angle theta. Let's plug in our values. P is 4 times 10 to the power minus 9, E is 5 times 10 to the power 4, and the angle is 30 degrees. Recall that sine of 30 degrees is exactly half. Now group the numbers. 4 times 5 is 20, 20 times 0.5 is 10. Group the powers of 10. 10 to the power minus 9 times 10 to the power 4 is 10 to the power minus 5. So we have 10 times 10 to the power minus 5. Cleaning up the scientific notation, 10 times 10 to the power minus 5 becomes 10 to the power of minus 4. So the torque is 10 to the power minus 4 Newton meters. Physically, this torque is trying to rotate the dipole clockwise so that it aligns perfectly with the electric field lines. Our next problem is basically a classic electrostatics experiment. A piece of polythene is rubbed with wool. After rubbing, the polythene is found to have a negative charge of 3 times 10 to the power minus 7 coulombs. Part A asks how many electrons were transferred and from which object to which. First, let's determine the direction. Electrons are negatively charged. Since the polythene became negative, it must have gained excess electrons. Therefore, the electrons transferred from the wool to the polythene. Now, how many? We use the quantization formula. Q equals N times E. We want this N. So we divide the total charge Q by the elementary charge E. That is 3 times 10 to the power minus 7 divided by 1.6 times 10 to the power minus 19. Doing the math, we get approximately 1.875 times 10 to the power of 12. That is nearly 2 trillion electrons transferred. Part B is an interesting conceptual question. Is there a transfer of mass? The answer is yes. We often treat electricity as weightless energy. But electrons are physical matter. They have a mass of 9.1 times 10 to the power minus 31 kgs. If we multiply that by the number of electrons, we got a total mass change of about 1.7 times 10 to the power minus 18 kilograms. It is incredibly tiny. You could not measure it with a kitchen scale. But physically, the polythene is slightly heavier and the wool is slightly lighter. For our last problem, we have two insulated copper spheres A and B. They are separated by a center to center distance r of 50 centimeters, which is 0.5 meters. Each sphere carries an identical charge q of 6.5 times 10 to the power minus 7 coulombs. Since their sizes are negligible, we treat them as point charges. Part A asks for the mutual force of electrostatic repulsion. Since both charges are positive, they repel. We then use Coulomb's law, F equals k times q squared divided by r squared. Plugging in Coulomb's constant, that is 9 into 10 to the power 9, our charge q, and the distance of 0.5 meters. We calculate the initial force F to be approximately 1.5 times 10 to the power minus 2 newtons. Now for part B, the scenario changes. First, the charge on each sphere is doubled, so q prime is 2q. Second, the distance between them is halved, so r prime is r over 2, which is 25 centimeters. What is the new force, F prime? Instead of recalculating from scratch, let's use algebra to find the relationship. In the numerator, 2q times 2q gives us 4q squared. In the denominator, r by 2 squared gives us r squared over 4. Dividing by a fraction is same as multiplying by its reciprocal, so that 4 from the bottom comes to the numerator. We get 4 times 4, which is 16 times our original expression for F. So the new force is 16 times the original force. Finally, we just multiply our answer from part A by 16. 16 times 1.521 times 10 to the power minus 2 gives us roughly 0.24 newtons. By doubling the charge and halving the distance, the repulsive force has increased dramatically by a factor of 16. And this is it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.